Happy Friday, ambitious readers. Welcome back to another edition of Reading Ambitiously, where every single week we bring you the most powerful ideas that are shaping our world. And we most definitely have one of those in store for you this week. So let's go ahead and jump into this week's big idea, the finished product. In 1962, Ross Perot was a 32-year-old salesman at IBM, the world's most powerful technology company. And he was so good that IBM considered shrinking his territory, and Mr. Perot offered to take a lower commission rate to keep it. That year, he hit his annual sales quota in just 19 days. But selling the machines had shown him what IBM was missing. Companies were spending exorbitant amounts to lease the mainframes that they struggled to use. They still needed someone to write the software, install the system, train the people, and keep everything running. Mr. Perot said his customers wanted a finished product, and he pitched IBM on providing it, but they passed. Mr. Perot has a line that I love, which is that life is never more fun than when you're the underdog competing against the giants, and IBM just volunteered to be that giant. Perot borrowed $1,000 from his wife Margaret's teacher savings account to start Electronic Data Systems, or EDS, and he made 77 sales calls before securing his first customer. EDS grew into one of the era's largest technology services companies by helping customers deploy technology and realize its value. The gap between technology and business results, well, that became Mr. Perot's market. And 57 years later, several years into my life as an entrepreneur, I began noticing that same gap. See, we would set a plan based on the best information we had using the newest technology possible. And that plan, it would move in a straight line, but the underlying work did not. Sometimes we arrived faster than we expected, and sometimes we arrived slower. Often, progress was happening before it became visible to all of us. You see, new things are simply just hard to forecast. Early plans are made before the team has learned what the work actually will require. And so I ended up drawing a picture of this in my journal circa 2019, and I called it the graph of misaligned expectations. And I hope you go to the written edition so that you can see this graph, because it shows how different expectations and progress move. Expectations respond almost immediately. And AI makes this problem especially common because information moves so fast today. Every single breakthrough we can know about in minutes or hours because of social media and the news cycle. But real progress still has to move through discovery, domain expertise, data, workflow, change management, trust, training, and ultimately adoption. You see, none of that moves in a straight line. And the gap between the lines, it can produce strange behavior because bad forecasts become goals and goals become promises. And when reality fails to follow the straight line, uncertainty starts to look like an execution problem. So we work harder, we add pressure, we measure whatever is the easiest thing to count. We tell ourselves that a breakthrough is right around the corner. Make no mistake, you need unwavering faith in your prevail, but you must confront the brutal truths because sometimes real progress is happening underneath, but sometimes it is not. And the leader's job is to know the difference. A goal can focus a team, but it cannot make an uncertain future suddenly predictable. Now, I found the graph again this week because AI is now living inside the same phenomena. Today, the computing power Perot once sold by the room arrives through the browser and it fits in our pockets. The AI labs certainly do not have a demand problem. And my hunch is that a few of their sales reps are probably having their own 19-day years. Companies are buying AI licenses by the thousands, and someone's demonstrating an interesting prototype that's got everyone excited. And I think by now we've all seen that token usage is skyrocketing. But CFOs are now asking a very fair question. So what are we getting from this spend? One CTO recently reported that his company's token costs were doubling every 45 days, while productivity had improved by perhaps 5%. Uber reportedly spent its entire 2026 AI budget in just 4 months after encouraging employees to use the technology more. Now, Apollo has looked for the impact in corporate earnings and found, quote, no visible signs of profit margins rising outside the technology sector. And when I saw the Apollo chart in their research brief, I immediately recognized the shape of the graph. It is the macroeconomic version of the sketch from my 2019 journal. The upper line is embedded in AI evaluations and the trillions and trillions of dollars being invested in the underlying infrastructure. The lower line is measured in profit margins and cash flow and ultimately business fundamentals. And Apollo's argument is largely about the most important thing, time, because most companies are still working their way up the lower line before AI appears in their financial results. And John Wooden had a very good phrase for this exact moment. Yes, the UCLA legend, but also he went to Purdue University. Shout out to my fellow Boilermakers. What he said was that one should never mistake activity for achievement. The AI boom has produced extraordinary activity, and much of it is healthy. New technologies, they need room for people to wander and discover what they're good for. And early in a cycle, learning and experimentation is a genuinely important achievement. But a pilot cannot stay a pilot forever. At some point, it needs a promotion to production or a funeral. Now, the largest AI companies appear to understand the problem. 5 of them have committed over $10 billion to embedding engineers inside customer organizations. Just last week, Microsoft alone recently committed $2.5 billion and 6,000 industry and engineering experts to a new AI implementation business. And Mr. Perot would recognize the solution because Silicon Valley has rediscovered consulting and give it an engineering title, the forward deployed engineer. FDEs work alongside customers to understand their business problems, their workflows, their data. They use the technology to build prototypes, to connect systems, and ultimately apply AI to specific jobs. Repeated use cases become software, they become tooling, and they become the playbooks for the next deployment. And many FDEs spend their days writing code inside customer environments to solve business problems they understand. Now, every major computing wave has created a deployment industry. Mainframes produced EDS, enterprise software produced armies of SAP and Oracle consultants, and cloud computing, they produced migration specialists and managed service providers. The vendors they worked with build the technology that can serve many customers. The deployment industry accumulates the domain expertise required to make that technology work for one of those customers. And you might be wondering, well, how large could the market for just that become? And I'm reminded of Jensen Huang's estimate that human intelligence represents 55 to 65% of global GDP, roughly $50 trillion. And he believes that all knowledge work will ultimately be augmented by AI. And while nobody knows how much additional value will ultimately be created, even a small share would produce an enormous market for companies that can turn AI models into Mr. Perot's finished products. And it may become one of the largest ever created by any technology cycle. The new job title does not change Mr. Wooden's scoreboard. If you want to hire an FDE, it doesn't guarantee an outcome. Neither does buying a license for whatever the newest technology is. It leaves leaders with a harder question. What should count as progress while you are living in the gap? You see, leading through the gap means knowing which phase we are in. During exploration, you need to be asking questions such as, what do we now know that we did not know before? But during deployment, you need to ask, what results have actually changed? And this is a delicate transition for leaders to make, because if you demand ROI too early and the search ends before people can actually discover and experience the aha miracle of what this technology can do, it can be fatal. Let experimentation continue forever, though, and it can become theater. Good leaders keep the upper line honest and make movement along the lower line visible. They communicate uncertainty without lowering their team's ambition. And they know that when team is learning and when it's time to execute. When progress is hard to see, pressure can feel like control, but it cannot make the lower line suddenly straight. Mr. Perot called the combination of hardware, software, programming, operations, and a customer result the finished product. And 64 years later, we are still buying machines faster than we can learn to use them. And I think fortunes will be made inside the distance, closing the gap. And when the finished product arrives, so do the results. I hope you stay ambitious, my friends. It's my pleasure to be with you every single week. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend. And please do take care of each other.